The Shark Deck.
Hi, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. The State of the Union is tonight. I asked the AI chatbot to write some late-night style jokes. They came up with this one. I like it. President Biden stayed up late preparing for the State of the Union. Hope he didn't forget to turn the oven off. Late night itself, the actual late night, no robots involved. I don't think so. They were talking about the documents again. Jimmy Fallon said, first they searched near Biden's Corvette. Now they're searching his beach house. I'm starting to think Biden created this whole scandal as a humble brag. Why don't you check my infinity pool? Maybe there's something behind the Picasso. Jimmy Kimmel said Biden's attorneys found documents at his main house in Delaware, and the president has a beach house in Delaware. I don't know. How's that a vacation? Can you vacation from Delaware to Delaware? They didn't find anything classified, but they did find a 1982 Zenith TV and 3 boxes of Parcheesi. I love that joke. When is the last time you even thought about Parcheesi or played it? If you're of a certain age, you surely played it. I don't think I've played it this century. Have you, Jimmy Fallon? Speaking of Biden, the White House announced that he will get his annual physical on February 16th. It's going to be crazy after Biden's colonoscopy when the doctor says, there's no easy way to tell you this, but we found more classified documents. Regular listeners know I've been in the basement with the door closed and hanging out on OnlyFans. What are you doing, Johnny Mac? That sounds very sus. Nope. I'm researching comedy, guys. I don't know what you guys think I'm doing down here. Bert Kreischer is joining OnlyFans. Yeah. The Roast of Bert Kreischer, featuring Rachel Feinstein, Big J. Okerson, Donnell Rawlings, Tony Hinchcliffe, Jim Norton, Tom Segura, and the person they put first was Trevor Wallace. I'm not that familiar with Mr. Wallace. I thought it was odd that they put him first because it doesn't even make sense alphabetically. Anyway, the Roast of Bert Kreischer on OnlyFans, free, April 1st. I'll be in the basement with the door closed. Jim Jefferies has a new special coming out Valentine's Day. It's called A High and Dry with an N in the middle. I didn't just slip into a Queen's accent there. In High and Dry, Jim Jefferies talks about everything from stoned koalas, his dad's vasectomy confusion, choosing between his hair and his sex drive, and more. Peacock has a special from Josh Johnson, which is a shame because it's on Peacock, which means nobody's going to use it. Hey, guys, if you want to buy some ads, I'll start pretending that everybody loves Peacock, but in the real world, nobody has Peacock. I'm sorry. However, Josh Johnson's comedy is fantastic. I was prepping for the show this morning. I was playing some of his clips. He's really, really good. This one is called Up Here Killing Myself. It'll premiere February 17th. Josh Johnson, who is a writer on The Daily Show, transforms an hour of talk therapy about his relationships with money, his father, and a stalker into an hour of stand-up. The press release says, and this shocked me, Josh Johnson is Comedy Central's most-watched comedian ever with 40 million views. Well, he's in the demo. Give him The Daily Show. What are you doing? Why are you wasting time? He already writes for the thing, and if he's super popular with your audience, why isn't he hosting the show? Josh said via press release. In my session that turned into the special, we talked about family, my feelings towards money, and just random thoughts that I didn't feel like I could tell anyone else. The subject matter didn't immediately jump out to me as funny. In fact, some of it was hard to make jokes about. I hope the takeaway from this piece is that you're never alone. Everyone's going through something, and it's important to be kind to one another because we never know what that something could be. This is my way of opening up about my journey. Thanks to DR, who shared this one on the Facebook group, which is Daily Comedy News Podcast Group. Dan Aykroyd will be hosting a series on Fox Nation about drinking. Fox Nation, first a Roseanne Barr special, now a Dan Aykroyd show. What's going on over there? This one is called A History of the World in 6 Glasses. Johnny Mac, why are you mentioning this? Well, the guests are comedians. Kevin Nealon, John Lovitz, George Wendt, and Jim Belushi. I've mentioned this before. Jim Belushi, I know everybody goes, Jim Belushi. Jim Belushi's a cool guy. And I remember one time we were putting together a special for the Blues Brothers with Dan and Jim. Got to spend some time with both of them. And I was stupid one morning. I thought I was calling Jim's office, and I called Jim's cell phone. And also, I forgot about time zones, so I called Jim's cell phone at 6:30 Pacific or wherever he was. I clearly woke him up, and he was totally cool about it. I fell in my sort of, oh my gosh, I'm such a jerk. And he was like, totally cool, but I still feel bad about that, Jim Belushi. Cool guy. The History of the World in 6 Glasses will chronicle the history of beer, wine, spirits, coffee, tea, soda, and their respective impact on the world. The Fox Nation president said, I laughed out loud watching every episode and learned so much about the cultural impact of these iconic beverages. So it's already in the can, but it will premiere in January 2024. Why are we waiting 11 months to release this thing, Fox Nation? Very suspicious. D.L. Hughley hosted The Daily Show last week. He told Complex how the current landscape leads to uncomfortable yet necessary conversations. Deal said, "We don't like to be uncomfortable, and comedy is a way of informing and satiating a need for knowledge, but without making people feel attacked. When you do it right, I think it's the only time people listen. Comedy has always been the way to have conversations that people wouldn't necessarily like to have in an open forum." He commended Trevor Noah for stepping away when it felt right. "Anytime someone has done what they can, it's better to leave through the front door than the back." He left on a high. He felt like he had contributed all he could and was leaving on his own terms. Anytime someone does something like that, you can't help but be happy for them. "You got to know when to walk away. You don't want to be Tom Brady. You don't want to stay too long." Trevor left after his Super Bowl, which is the way to go out on top. Roy Wood Jr., he would like to host The Daily Show, but they're making him wait while we churn through Chelsea Handler and Sarah Silverman. Again, wonderful comedians, but they're too old for the demo that Comedy Central wants. I don't see either one of them getting the show. Give it to Josh Johnson. Give it to Roy Wood Jr. Roy does have a gig. He'll be the host of the White House Correspondents' Dinner on April 29th. He said, "It's an honor to be part of a long-running tradition of celebrating those members of the media who work so hard to uncover the truth and hold our government accountable. It'll be a great night that will go down in the history books, or not, depending on which state you live in." The president of the White House Correspondents Association said, "Roy Wood Jr. brings a journalistic eye to his comedy. He's hilarious, but he also makes sure his audience are thinking as they laugh." If you want to support the show, a lot of things you can do. One, on Apple Podcasts, they'll put the premium option in front of you. So for $5 a month, and the first month is free if you want to test drive this whole concept, you'll get the episodes early. By early, I mean like around 4 p.m. Eastern the night before. As soon as I clean up the edit and I publish it, I usually release it 4 p.m. the day before. The weekend episodes are usually available for you Friday morning. All those episodes are also commercial-free. I know the show's been commercial-free in general lately as I've changed some things behind the scenes. Trust me, it's going to make sense long-term. But you can do that, or you can go to buymeacoffee.com/dailycomedynews. There are a couple bucks in the tip jar. Buymeacoffee.com/dailycomedynews. All the options are on there. Nathan had told me to listen to Howie Mandel with Weird Al. I did. It was a really good episode, Nathan. Thank you for putting that on my radar. Howie's a pretty good interviewer. And they got into a story I guess everybody knows. It had never hit my radar, and I went back and I looked. This happened in April of 2004, so I just started at Sirius Satellite Radio running comedy then, and I know the first 6 months at Sirius, the entire comedy department was just me, and all I did was load CDs because there weren't enough CDs in the system to really run comedy channels with any sort of depth. So that's why I suspect we didn't do anything about this other than I probably saw it, but I don't remember the story at all. What are you talking about, Johnny Mac? From the New York Times, April 11, 2004, the parents of Weird Al Yankovic were found dead on Friday in their home, apparently victims of carbon monoxide poisoning. Al talked about this with Howie. Nick Yankovic was 86, Mary Yankovic was 81. They were found dead by relatives who were worried because they hadn't seen the couple in a while. A wood fire had been set in the fireplace. Local sheriff said the house was full of smoke when they opened the door. The relatives have found the flue to the fireplace closed. Awful. Al tells the story that he found this out, and he still went on stage that night. And he explains like he didn't want to let the audience down. It was a distraction for him. What else are you going to do? Oh, my goodness. Can you imagine going out? Especially you're going out there to be funny and you're doing parody songs after that. Oh, wow. So it's a really good interview with Howie Mandel. Let me tell you what the podcast is properly called. It is called Howie Mandel Does Stuff. So listen to the Weird Al episode. At the time, Al put out a statement that said, "Going up on stage in front of thousands of supportive fans is a cathartic and somewhat therapeutic experience for me right now. I don't know if I could say that the concerts really take my mind off the tragedy, but at least they give me a break from sobbing all the time." Wow. Star Tribune took a look at James Adomian. He does a really good Trump. James Austin Johnson kind of has the most famous Trump right now, thanks to SNL. But there was an album, Trump versus Bernie, that I used to play a lot on the Slacker Radio Live 1 show that I host, which is called The Weekly Comedy Thing. Adomian is a really good impressionist. He had to cancel a couple shows because Jimmy Kimmel needed him in L.A. to do his impression of Mike Lindell. But James made it out to Minneapolis, showed up at the Acme Comedy Club, and he did some impressions. One of them, Jesse Ventura, and he explained how it's like a typical Midwest accent that spent too much time in the oven. The Star Tribune writes, one of the reasons James isn't as well known as other impressionists is because he favors obscure celebrities. One of the highlights of Thursday's sold-out show was his reimagination of a homophobic Sam Elliott being interviewed on Marc Maron's podcast. That sounds hilarious. He also did BBC narrator David Attenborough. Time out, that reminds me. Speaking of David Attenborough, have you watched on Netflix Hunk on Earth? Is that what it's called? Yeah, sorry, I forgot to put that in the notes. I was watching that late last week. If you like Eric Idle, and especially when Eric Idle would do the news reporter walking around and absurd things would happen behind him, picture 5 hours of that. It's basically the history of humanity going from cavemen to today, but done in that really dry, British, sarcastic style. Diane Morgan stars as Philomena Kunk. Highly recommended. Netflix put it right in front of me, and I devoured it. Not for everybody, but if you like dry British humor, and if you like Python specifically, Kunk on Earth is for you. Anyway, James Adomian did David Attenborough, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, and the Munchkin Coroner from The Wizard of Oz. He also apparently does Tom Selleck. NBC has renewed Night Court for a second season. Hey, it's doing the numbers that the World Series does, so why not? An NBC suit said it's so rewarding to have audiences respond and return to a show in which they have such incredibly warm feelings, and more broadly, it's a testament to how broadcast is still a huge driver of communal viewing. No, it's not Lisa Katz, president of scripted content. You know it's not. This is an outlier. Nobody's watching network television. Sorry. But hey, if you buy ads on NBC, Peacock, you're the same company, I will sit here. I'm a shill. I'll be like, oh my God, Peacock, it's great. If you listen regularly, you know I like deep diving on overseas comedy. And I saw a headline on IndulgeExpress.com, which was New Zealand comic Sam Wills makes his debut in India. And I'm like, that's randomly random. Let me click on this. Sam Wills is better known by stage name Tapeface. Am I bad that I didn't know about Tapeface? Apparently Tapeface was on America's Got Talent in 2016, so a lot of you were like, dude, America's Got Talent, one of NBC's fine shows, which you could probably find on Peacock. See, I can chill. Anyway, Tapeface was apparently on AGT. Who knew? I missed it. I don't know what I was doing. But he does silent comedy, and he has tape over his mouth. He says, I call it stand-up without talking. I'm using all the normal stand-up comedy writing styles, but applying it to a silent character. The show involves everyday objects, as I like the idea of getting audiences to see things differently. It sounds like a lot of fun. Hey, Tapeface, what are you looking forward to in India? He said, I've always wanted to take the show to all parts of the world, and when India came up, I leapt at it. He's looking forward to the food. I can't wait to eat good Indian food. I can understand that. I enjoy some good Indian food myself. All right, who are you inspired by? The beginning of my career, I really liked comedians like Jimmy Carr and Joey Delaware. I don't know Joey Delaware. But then once I started going down the silent comedy road, I discovered a whole new world of comedy sight gags. All right, what are we going to see in the show? He says, I'll bring back John Lennon, I'll fight Darth Vader, and I'll even have a shootout. That sounds cool. All right, what's the best and worst thing that can happen during the tour? Best, we sell out, you guys have a good time. Worst thing, I get food poisoning or get attacked by bees. That's your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your shows. See you tomorrow. Did you know you can name a cockroach after your ex-lover and have it fed to the animals at the zoo? Hi, I'm Johnny Mac with 5 Good News Stories. It's a podcast twice a week where I tell you 5 good news stories, 5 fluffy stories. I just want to make you smile to start your day. I can tell you about a cat and a rabbit that fell in love, or I can tell you how porta potties are about to be a lot less horrible. What kind of show is this? It's called 5 Good News Stories. The number 5 Good News Stories. Follow it, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your shows. 5 Good News Stories.